Okay, we're doing something a little bit different this fall on the Gravity Podcast. We're launching a series featuring interviews with the experts from our Grow Transformational Wellness Program, exclusively for residents of our greenhouse community. The year-long program is made up of monthly learnings designed to help residents build habits for a better life. Each month, a new wellness topic is introduced by an expert in that area. I'm excited for you to hear from each guest on their journey to becoming an expert and finding their passion for helping others through wellness practice. Tune in this fall to hear their inspiring stories. For more information on the Grow program, visit livinggreenhouse.com. As I said, this program is exclusively for our greenhouse residents today. So please, if you have somebody that's interested in looking for a community like Greenhouse, please check out the website and shoot us a note if this is something that you'd like to learn more about as a non-resident. We're also considering potentially over time expanding this program outside of the physical community and into our virtual community as well. So enjoy our guests, our experts, and check us out at livinggreenhouse.com.
This episode may contain discussions or themes that could be triggering or sensitive to some individuals. Please proceed with caution. If you're unsure whether this content may affect you, we urge you to check the show notes for specific details on the topics discussed. Listener discretion is advised. This episode contains discussions of medical treatments and other wellness practices for informational purposes only and should not be considered medical advice.
Okay, today's guest on the Gravity Podcast is Sean Carroo. Sean is the founder and owner of Wellness Flow, a health clinic focused on vitamin IV treatments, blood paneling, peptides, and other therapies to improve overall health in collaboration with physicians and pharmacists. Sean's background in athletics and fitness and witnessing his own family health struggles inspired him to build a community around wellness to provide others with the access to innovative health treatments. Sean is also the sleep expert for the Grow Transformational Wellness Program at our greenhouse communities and provides guidance to residents in optimizing their sleep habits. Sean is a friend that I'm really honored to have the time to unpack his full journey and to have him contribute to our greenhouse community. There's a lot more that we are looking to continue to do together, but this is a great start, and I hope that you'll get to know Sean here on the podcast. Enjoy it.
Yeah, welcome, Sean. Good to have you on the podcast, and great to be spending some time with you and having you involved at Greenhouse with our Grow program. And yeah, I've enjoyed getting to know you a little bit and wanted to do a deep dive and share your journey and what you're up to with our audience.
Well, I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for having me here. It's been beautiful. I'm really excited about the Grow program, and I'm I love being able to spread the kind of journey of wellness, not only from my own take, but through a community. Wellness is a whole encompassing ideology. It's not just one little sliver of anything. So I really appreciate it, and love being able to share that, or at least my aspect of it.
Yeah, totally. I think we see that very similarly, and definitely want to unpack that. But let's start. You mentioned the wellness journey. I want to share the full journey with our audience. So, tell me a little bit about kind of your early beginnings and where you're from and your family and, what you were like as a little kid.
Well, growing up, I'm a Chicagoan. I was born and raised Chicago. Mm-hmm. My family, I have two sisters, mom and dad. They grew up actually in the restaurant business growing up. And so my family's Italian. We learned how to cook. I cooked and everything growing up. And, we kind of got raised in a very strict manner where work was the emphasis, work harder, do more type of things. And from that, there was always this emphasis in my family on health is what is going to make you available to work. That's where kind of the idea of health and wellness started in my life. Is it wasn't like a, hey, we want to do this to be healthier type of thing. It was to work more.
Oh yes, and that came from who?
That was a big thing for my father.
Your dad, yeah. And why was that so important to him, or where was he coming from in that line of thinking?
He is just a real stickler for regimen. I mean, even to this day, my dad is 67. He gets up at 4 a.m., works out before he even hits like going to work or anything like that. He's very methodical. And the only way that he could perform well he was trying to start his own business to support his family. And in his mind, the only way he could do more was by taking care of himself. And so that was then passed on to me as like, hey, like you have to work out, we have to take care of you because you have to be available. Like the healthier you are, if you're sick and in bed, you can't do anything.
Yeah.
And so that became like the real grounds for where like I started with everything. Because then early on I got into athletics and everything like that.
Yeah, tell me about that. So what were you into as a kid?
I despite what I look like right now, I started swimming. I swam from the age of 5 till 22. So actually swimming was my whole life. I did other sports. I did baseball and gymnastics and different things here and there, but swimming was always my primary like sport. My mom was a swimmer, and so like kind of just grew up in that culture. And in that culture, it's very lean, athletic. Like it's a grind every single day. I think I started doing doubles at like 8 years old. 6 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah.
So like you get used to this very regimented schedule.
Did you like it? I mean, was it something that, your mom did and therefore she wanted you to do? Or, I remember, I don't know, taking swim lessons as a little kid and having to get to the pool early, and I hated it. I hated it. I didn't, become a swimmer, but I just remember like hating that, but some people love it. Where were you with it? Were you just doing it because it was what you were supposed to do, or you loved it?
Super obsessive.
Yeah.
Like I tell everybody, I'm a laser. I don't multitask very well. I don't do 10 different things at once.
Yeah.
I do one thing, but I am down the line at it.
Yeah.
I picked it up immediately. That's all I wanted to do.
You wanted,
swim.
Uh-huh.
I would look up other people's times. I would know my teammates' times and everything. I was very methodical.
So you were into it. Yeah.
Oh, I was totally into it. And to swing back to the health part of this is where what I do now was born. And like my parents will tell this story. At 8 or 9 years old, there was this whole, I think there was like a whole political thing going on. And, my parents were talking about the times, and they're talking about health insurance and everything like that. And I literally was just like, well, like, are they going to do this or that? And my parents were kind of like, yeah, like they kind of talk about these things and things can change. But I was like, well, why doesn't anybody do anything about it? Like, why are we relying on these systems? And so from a very early age, it like snapped in my head that like, well, nobody's doing anything. Why don't I do something?
Interesting.
And then like, I laugh about it to this day because I was like, the idea of what I do now, I had from a very early age. Now, like it's morphed over the years as I've like taken knowledge from like my studies and everything like that, and learning, this and that, and being involved in athletics and everything like that. But the real birth of this like huge wellness journey that, I'm trying to impart on the world and make my impact on the world started well before I was 10 years old. I always had this idea, like big ideology of like, well, if nobody's going to do it, I'm going to do it.
Yeah. That's interesting. I think that, that is true for a lot of people, and it's not for most, that people, kids, especially, when they start to kind of get to high school, college age, oftentimes don't know what they want to do. And some of them, have ideas, and those are often based on things maybe they think they should do, or society says, those are respectable. But it sounds like you had some sort of internal flame from a very young age about what it was you wanted to do. And I imagine, just based on what you've shared so far, that the influence of your home had a lot to do with that. I mean, your parents sound like, athletes and really valuing health and wellness and exercise. And even if it's so that you can, fill in the blank, work or whatever, that seems to be part of the conversation that's not in many homes. And I'm sure that really had to influence your line of thinking about how you wanted to spend your life, what you wanted to do as well.
Well, I think that is such an interesting concept, because how me and my sisters grew up, this is just an ingrained part. Mm-hmm. And like, as I get older, or as I was like going through high school and college, to your point, less and less people are like, have this like concept of what health is, mm-hmm. how to eat right, how to sleep right, like how to operate in a function that's going to provide longevity for you and your family. Now, my journey gets even heavier, and where like the real fire in me stoked to do this is my mom had a lot of health problems. Like, she at a very early age, had issues with leukemia, and they put her through terrible chemo and all of this stuff. And it just, racked her body. And at that time, that was the best treatments they had available. But ultimately, it was a crapshoot. Mm-hmm. And now way later in life, like, her body's paying the price because they just didn't know. And that's no fault of what it was. That was the time of medicine. Mm-hmm. But here we are, like, and she's having these concerns like she's just having massive inflammation issues. Mm-hmm. And she, like, anytime her body heats up, she's swelling to the point of we got to take her to the hospital. And watching my mom go through that, something, is terrible. Yeah. And on top of that, I had grandparents who have gone through dementia and Alzheimer's, which touches a lot of us. And that's one of the most awful things you could ever see, is somebody go through years of that and watching them decline. And like, I just sit there as like a Bambi, like, this is what the end of life looks like. This is crazy. There's no way, like, we can accept this. Mm-hmm. And that's when I got really hardcore into, literally that day, I saw my mom go through like an inflammation bout. I quit cold turkey, all sodas, everything that day. And I was a fiend. Wake up in the morning, 7-Up.
How old were you?
This was 14 years old.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Come home, soda. After practice, soda. Yeah. I was drinking 5 or 6 cans a day, easy. Mm-hmm. I was eating all the processed bread, easy, all the time. Mm-hmm. I saw my mom go through one of those bouts. Literally next day, never touched it ever again.
Yeah.
Like, don't touch it. Nope. It is. And like, I could tell immediately the changes in the body, and that's the light bulb for, wow.
Yeah.
So many people think like, oh, sandwiches are great, like white bread sandwich, mayo, the fake cheese and all that stuff. It's tasty, sure. Yeah. But what is it actually doing to you?
And how did you know at that age that was something that you needed to even have some awareness around? I mean, most people, I don't think at 14 years old are connecting the dots that the processed food, the sodas, the sugars are impacting them, in their health.
The soda, I learned, this is going to be a hot take. I learned in history class because the Nazis were breaking down bodies with Coca-Cola. And it was like, are you kidding me? Learned that, and I was like, absolutely no way. Yeah. My mom was the one who tipped me off with the bread, because I had noted that she would have problems every time we'd have like sandwiches on the weekends. Was a big thing for us. Sunday morning was always like, we'd do sandwiches and chips and all that stuff. And every Sunday morning, my mom would have issues like right afterwards. Yeah. And there was a particular time one Sunday where it was just bad. And I would like, I started to pick up on the pattern. I didn't know hyper specifically that the bread and some of the processed food was it, but I just associated that with what was happening with her. And the Coke and stuff, I was just like, and the pop, I was like, after I learned all that stuff, I was like, it has to be bad. I literally just correlated. I was like, nope.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it.
Okay, so you go through into high school. Tell me a little bit more about kind of how you start to lean into this journey, knowing where it's now started from. How does it then continue to unfold for you?
Well, it started as we continued through high school. I just started really getting into like trying to understand and trying to learn more and more. And this is my propensity as a person. I love to read. Mm-hmm. And this is where I really stepped into reading. And it wasn't like it started with, my favorite books to start with, like Jurassic Park and fiction and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But then I just got this obsession of like, oh, we have a library here and there's all these books of knowledge. And like you start going through and reading it and like gaining different knowledge, not just in the medical world, but in building and like just random topics. Mm-hmm. Just became like a weird obsession with mine. Is like I just would read and like just gaining knowledge felt powerful in a way. And I took how I was feeling because I was swimming. I was, I wanted to be a D1 athlete, which is like the pinnacle as a swimmer. Like I wanted to go from high school to Division I, and you still have dreams of making the Olympics and all that stuff. And so how do I make myself better? How do I optimize myself? Well, the knowledge has to be in the books. Mm-hmm. So I turned to the library and I just started reading books on human body, anatomy, like the immune system and all this stuff. And like you start picking out things when you're reading like this, that what we learn as a society is a normal, but then you're like, the book doesn't say this. Mm-hmm. And so all of a sudden you're starting to pick up that there's some misalignments from what we think we know to what we know. Mm-hmm. And then that doesn't even get into like, okay, I'm trying to be better as an athlete. I'm trying to do like right by me. It comes in as a very selfish, like, ideology at the time. Like I'm doing all this for me. Well, what makes me feel better? What makes me feel worse? Mm-hmm. Like you just start paying attention to like, this whole journey starts at food, essentially. Mm-hmm. My family is Italian. We love pasta. We love breads. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, at the time, we can only really afford box pasta and everything like that, and I would notice if we made our own pasta, like with like good flour and stuff like that, I would feel better as opposed to trying to make a box pasta out of the store. Mm-hmm. Well, that like at that time, like, I'm not that learned. I'm like, how is this a thing? Yeah. And so like you just start exploring. I think anybody's journey when it comes to wellness starts with what I would call pebbling. There's just little tokens, little breadcrumbs here and there that you pick up that you start noticing. Yeah. I think all of us as we get older get more involved with wellness because we are starting to pick up things that make us feel better or worse. I think we're more in tune with our body as we grow older. Mm-hmm. And I think that like starts to flip the light bulb. So people, as we've seen, generally pick up wellness later in life, but we're starting to see people earlier and earlier because now we're having conversations like this of you can start your wellness journey from a very young age. Mm-hmm. There is ways that you can do better, move, eat, like how you sleep, everything like that can all be improved.
Yeah, well, it is interesting. I've thought a lot about this because, for me, my interest in wellness didn't come until later in life. I always played sports and was active as a kid, but I also, had a bunch of unhealthy habits, food and, drinking and drugs and smoking and whatever, like, in high school, college, sort of just what I did. And I wasn't interested in working out. I never had any interest in working out. And I discovered running, and I would weight lift a little like as a young adult, but I never really liked it. It took me time to really like find the love of exercise. And I think a lot of that is because it wasn't role modeled for me. And because, and like athletics were role modeled, but like going to the gym, or cardiovascular outside from like
running on a soccer field or playing tennis or whatever it was. It just wasn't like, it wasn't in my like frame of reference. And the guys that I knew that were going to the gym was mostly like the football players. And I always thought they were like a sort of, and they were friends of mine. I'm like, you guys are meathead jocks. Like, you know, like, I don't get it. You're going in there, you're pumping iron, you think you're, you know, big shit and, you know, walking around with your shirts off, but like, you know, you guys are losers. And
Absolutely.
right. But I learned later in life as I got the feeling of what it feels like to put yourself through a hard workout, to feel strong and stable. I even was telling my wife the other day, like I just climbed into an Uber the other day, but I noticed in the way that I climbed that it felt familiar to like, you know, jumping over a box, you know, in the gym. Like there was a movement to it. I'm like, oh, I feel strong in that movement, right? You start to connect the dots of how it actually gets into your life, how it makes you feel better mentally, right? How being strong physically has you feel, you know, better prepared to move through the world, you know, whether that be rolling around on the floor with grandkids or getting in and out of a car or climbing a flight of stairs or traveling or just sort of mentally feeling clear and strong and, you know, the biology of it all, right? Like you start to connect those dots. I'm like, oh, that's what those guys were doing. You know, I've like said this to my friends who I'm still friends with from high school. I'm like, I get it now. Now I know why you guys were doing that, you know? But so much of it, you know, again, just kind of come back to your like upbringing does start with, you know, having some sort of, you know, ecosystem around you that pulls you into that.
What sports did you play?
Well, I played soccer and baseball until I moved to Columbus, and then I switched and started playing tennis through high school.
Oh, like tennis and everything like that. Never got into soccer, baseball. Absolutely love. Now, did you carry that through, or was that?
Well, I actually no. I stopped playing soccer and baseball. I lived in Akron until I was 10, and I played soccer and baseball as a little kid, and then a little bit here when I moved to Columbus, but all my friends played tennis here. So I'm like, all right, I guess I'm playing tennis. And I didn't continue playing soccer and baseball after that. I quit playing tennis when I went off to college and didn't play probably for 15 years, but I play, you know, 5-6 days a week now.
It's funny how you talk about weightlifting. Like most people see me now as a physically imposing person, and you know I've done a lot in the weightlifting world. I was very much anti. I think you know you said it. It made me fucking grin. I was a total shithead when it came to lifting in high school. It's like, I don't need to do this. Like, I'd literally be in the corner with like a 5-pound weight. Like, you know, I'm lifting out here. Like, oh, I was totally anti-lifting for like the longest time. Like, I was all about swimming. You couldn't tell me anything about lifting. Like, I don't care about this at all.
Well, swimmers get jacked too. So it's like, why would you?
Well, huge shoulders, like, you know, your frame like becomes real perfect. And my superpower, and this is what I like, and I inherited this. This was not like I grew into this. So I'm super flexible. Like I might be big and all that stuff, but like I can put my feet behind my head. I can go into the splits, like, you know, all that. And I've had that forever. And that wasn't even something I trained. I just kind of was inherently. And I think that was like one of the biggest things that helped me in my athletic career and why I was able to excel the way I was able to. It was flexibility. I can't say that I ever worked on it at all. Yeah. Like I definitely got into yoga and hot yoga. And full disclosure, I got into hot yoga because of the girls.
Sure.
Oh my God, there were some cute girls. I was like, yeah, I'll go to hot yoga. I'm about it.
Right. Whatever gets you there. Yeah.
And like I just remember getting all that so like, I mean, you said it. None of us are perfect when we get into the wellness side. Is like I come off as like maniacal. I've been wellness forever. Like I definitely went through like, you know, early into college drinking a ton and all partying and all that. shenanigans. Like I've definitely been through it as well. But there's always kind of that calling and recentering, because my life since forever, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. You know, my parents were athletes. You know, my dad, one of the most special memories I ever have, and like, you know, core memories, is we go on bike rides together. Oh my God, I can't even tell you, as like a 15-year-old, I'm doing like century rides on a bicycle because that was fun. Like that's what I love to do. And like, you know, I think that keeps you centered eventually. I think we all come back to our center when it comes to stuff like that. But you know, you go through, and like with swimming, I was so obsessed with, I wanted to be the best. And I 100% had like Napoleon syndrome. I'm like 5'8", 5'9". If you go to like my college profile or whatever, I think they tell you I'm 5'11". I'm like, no. I'm 5'8" on a good, 5'9" on a good day. But like, I had a coach who like was near and dear to me, but like one day they just came to me, and just like you, the reason I stuck with swimming ultimately is because this is where my friends were at. Like I was obsessed with it, but like overall athletically, I was a better baseball player. Like I was better at other sports, like objectively, but I stayed in swimming because my friends were in swimming. Yeah. And we had some guys who like went on to be like real big time, almost made the Olympics type of guys. And like, that was our core group. But my coach came to me, and in one of the, like, it's equally both. And one of the most horrific but best days I've ever had was my coach was basically like, Sean, you're never going to make it. Like you're not going to go on to college. You're just not built for it. Like you're short, and sure, you got a lot of spunk to you, but you're never going to do it. And boy, oh boy, I took that, fuck you, like I'm gonna fucking do it. So now is when I got really obsessed with, I'm gonna do whatever I can do. So that's when I started like learning like, what are VO2 levels? What are my oxygen intake like? How can my body move better? Like I'm not gonna let them tell me what I can and cannot do. And that just accelerated, and we had a new club coach who came in who loved my energy with that. And so he kind of took me under my wing. Without him, and like I have my shirt on, but I have a tattoo on this arm. It in large part is for him. He took me under like his wing in that aspect and was like, yeah, like you're going to have to put in the work, but you can do it. And like, he really started to show me body mechanics on how to move in the water. And my whole career trajectory of swimming, and I think athletics, was changed that day, because I just refused to accept that this was the way it was going to be. I was like, I love this too much. I'm not done at high school. Forget that. Yeah. And so I exploded in as far as like what I was able to do as far as a swimmer from that point on, because I just took it in totality of like, I'm going to sleep better. I'm going to train harder. I'm going to like and then this leads into, how do I eat? I learned that like going down to the University of Texas. We would train down there, like training camps and stuff like that. And in the swim world, you know, University of Texas is one of like the absolute cream of the crop, tippy top programs. Yeah. And, you know, they would go through all of us with nutrition on how to eat. And like, that was like the Bible to me. Like, oh, this is how you do it. And like, this is how you feed yourself and everything like that. And again, like, looking back on it now, it's part of the wellness journey, but at that time, it's a very selfish goal. Like, I'm not even thinking about health and wellness. I'm thinking about, screw this guy, you know, who you can't tell me what to do. I'm gonna do it. And that really accelerated me to like, then, you know, that took me into college, and then I swam Division I, and it was all like, I don't know if it's healthy or not, but like in a spiteful way. It was like, I'm going to do it. You can't tell me otherwise. Yeah. And like, then I became super competitive and super into like my body and my journey and everything like that. Yeah. And that's where I really started to study.
Yeah. So tell me, you know, as you kind of hit that next level, you're in college,
you're obviously you've had this passion and curiosity, and you're learning, since you were a little kid. You get to college and you're starting to think about careers, I'm assuming. Tell me how you then kind of started to move really into this work as work.
Well, I started off my science career as I went into my first fields of study are all in engineering, all in mechanical engineering, aerospace engineering, and like chemistry of that. And I wanted to be an astronaut. Like I was like, I'm going to be an astronaut here. Well, being an astronaut, you can only do that being some type of engineer or scientist or a pilot. Mm-hmm. I ain't being a pilot. And I just fell in love with like the physical sciences. I fell in love with biochemistry and biomechanics and chemistry. And then like even I got into like quantum physics and everything like that. Like I love that stuff. Now that's not to say, full disclosure, my first 2 years, I did not have my head on straight for college. I was like, I'm out here partying, I'm out here doing it. And this has always been kind of, if we're being truthful and transparent about it, a cycle in my life where I will go from like, I've worked so hard to get this goal. I've gotten here. And then when I'm there, it was like, I've made it. And it's like, I won the Super Bowl. So like my first year or two, 100%, like I did not focus on school or swimming. I partied all the time. I like totally fell off the wagon. Mm-hmm. But in what's a true theme of my life is like, once that happened and I fell off the wagon and gotten in all the trouble, I cold turkey 180'd the other way. I literally call it my Forrest Gump moment. I got like kicked off the team the first time. I went home depressed. This has been my whole life. Mm-hmm. I've never run. I was a fast runner, but I'd never run long distance in my life. I don't think I've ever done more than a mile to 2 mile run at this point. Mm-hmm. It's Chicago. It is mid-November. I was so depressed and upset. I cold turkey run 20 miles in like the rain and snow. And when I got done with that, it was just a reset. Mm-hmm. And that's when I got really into my studies. That's where the real obsession became. Because you know what? I'm just this guy where I was like, I got kicked off the team. Okay, I'm going to make it back on the team. Mm-hmm. And I called my coach that day and I said, I'm going to make it back. Mm-hmm. He's like, I was like, no, I will. I'll prove to you. I was like, I'll prove it. And from that point on, I became like the #1 student in our program for engineering. I lived in that building. I would go from the engineering building to the pool, engineering the pool. There was almost no reason for me to have an apartment. I was never there. I would sleep at the pool or the engineering building. I would be there. Mm-hmm. And then like, okay, I'm behind the 8 ball of training because I've missed a couple months. And this is where I really get into sports science and everything like that and chemistry. Again, how do I make up for what I lack? And for me in swimming, that's size, that's height. If you go to the Olympic trials or nationals and anything like that, all your guys there, 6'3", 6'4".
Right.
My best friend growing up, he was 6'4", 7'2" wingspan. Mm-hmm. The kids who I swam with, 6'8". Like our whole friend group, the shortest kid besides me, because they were all swimmers and they were all national level swimmers as well, 6'1".
Yeah.
Everybody was between 6'1" and 6'10". Mm-hmm. And then there was me.
Yeah.
And I was like, how do I overcome this? And the only way is like, while they're having McDonald's and Taco Bell, which obviously I love, but I was like, I can't do that. Mm-hmm. Like, I have to make that gap up somehow.
Yeah.
And so then it became, now, okay, again, this is like still very in the selfish moments and learned through all of undergrad. Like, and then I made it back on the team. And then I was back to being like one of the premier swimmers on the team. Okay, and then I get into post-grad studies where I'm like, now I'm really getting into chemistry. But I finish undergrad and swimming is done. And in a very brutal way, there's not really like a professional swimming league. And it's like, well, I've done this my whole life. What do I do now? So I had to find something to fill that competitive void. And I got immediately into powerlifting. I don't know why. I honest to God, I literally just showed up at a gym. I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
I just showed up at a gym, and I happened to just be strong for my size. I was probably a $140. But like I was lifting pretty heavy weights. Oh, okay. And like these guys happen to be from Columbus, Ohio. They were former West Side barbell lifters.
Okay.
And so I got indoctrinated into the world of powerlifting and West Side barbell and everything through that. And I went from like 140 pounds to like 190 pounds. Like I was getting huge, and I was lifting crazy weights that I would never thought. I was like in school, if you talk about like bench or deadlift or anything like that, we're talking 100 pounds, 200 pounds. In one summer, my deadlift went from 200 pounds to 400 in one summer. And it was like, oh my God. Like this is another light bulb moment in my life of this is where there's something here to being better, to lifting weights.
How did you eventually start to kind of pull all of these pieces together? I'm kind of curious about, what were the kind of big steps that allowed you to eventually land into, what you're doing today?
So this is exactly the next point is from there, these guys who took all of this so seriously, world caliber, world champions. I just asked, I was like, how did you get into this? They're like, well, like we take care of ourselves. This is how we eat. But they referred a couple sports doctors and a couple different clinicians and stuff like that. And me being me, I was like, I have to know. So then I literally called up where they're at. I called them. I was interested. I was like, I'm not just interested in being an athlete for you. I want to learn. Like I have all my degrees here in science. I love it. Like, I start your guys' programs as like an undergrad and everything like that. And from what I learned way later, they normally don't do these things, but they said, sure. And so then I got indoctrinated in these programs where I started studying under these physicians and these pharmacists and everything like that. And then that's where the real like, oh, you can do this for wellness for people. It was in that moment of I'm trying to be stronger and better, but I'm watching these physicians now take care of your professional football players, your professional baseball players, your cyclists, your track people. And it was like they're inducing them in protocols to take you from 100% human to 110% human and beyond. I went to him and I said, can you do this for normal people? Does this make any sense? And they were like, yeah. And that's where it really started for me, was in that moment of, oh, this isn't just for athletes. This isn't just for high level. This can be for anybody. These protocols to reduce inflammation and to make your body feel better are birthed from so we can train harder the next day. And it circles all the way back to when I was telling you I was 14. You mean there's things I can do that can take away inflammation from somebody that has arthritis and wild inflammation issues? My mom? Yeah. My life changed that day. I made a vow that day. I called my parents. I said, Mom, I'm going to change your life forever. Promise you. And I literally kind of tapered out of like being a hardcore powerlifter and getting into fighting and everything like that. I literally tapered out of that. And I knew I was going to start my business then. Because at this point, I had been studying for, this is like 4 or 5 years. I had done all these clinics and like I'd kind of gone through all like the medicine fields of study there. And I was like, I know for a fact that there is a way that we as people can make each other healthier and better. And, this is a conversation, and this is what I love about what you're doing here is wellness, I think, and there's a lot of very important things when it comes to it, but community is paramount as far as a baseline structure for what wellness is. Anybody can go out there and just be like, well, I'm going to get some sunshine today. It makes me feel better. That's great. But you know what does a lot better is when your neighbor, your neighbor's neighbor, your cousin, and all of them are like, hey, did you know that, like, yeah, being outside helps, but like, did you know if you eat like a little bit better food here that like that's going to increase too? It becomes your own research university.
Yeah.
And that is, I was like, why am I doing this just for me and for my mom and stuff like that? And, you know, that's beautiful. And that's where it started. But I started looking at everything that we do in society. And it took me all the way back to that 8-year-old kid of, oh, somebody needs to do something about this.
Yeah.
And it's just my personality. I'm not a wait around person.
Yeah. So I'm just curious, just, you know, for the benefit of the audience, you know, talk a little bit about how you are doing that now. I mean, I know that, you know, you've kind of been adding and including more and more and more, but, you know, why don't you talk a little bit about what it is that you eventually pulled together and built and what you're doing.
So what we've built here is we started everything with like different nutritional IVs. That's very prominent in the athlete world. Again, the start of all this. And then it's building on that. Hey, we want to do blood profiling. Okay, if you do blood profiling, what does blood work look like? How do you determine if somebody's sick or healthy based off of blood work? Okay, so you go through, you learn how to do all that. Then we want to look at biome, which is like your gut health. Well, how do you know what strains of bacteria are going to affect you? How do you know what food affects you? You know, and then it's, what are we forgetting? The biggest organ in the body, your skin. Well, okay, how do we incorporate things that are going to help people's skin? So we've developed all of these programs and what I would call human optimization programs to take a look at each one of these facets for people and try to improve their lives or optimize you as a person. This isn't just for your 20-year-olds to 30-year-olds, your 30 to 40, 40 to 50, et cetera, et cetera. We've had patients who are 70, 80 years old, chronically ill, chronic inflammation, and you take them through all these protocols of, hey, there are things out there. We can get into peptides. We can get into hormone therapies. We can get into supplementation. We take you through diet programs. Hey, this is sleeping better. This is eating better. And this is what it really is. It isn't the boogeyman. I use the boogeyman all the time of folklore of like, oh, well, we think this is better and we think this is better. No, this is, these things have been done by people for centuries. There's tons of study on it. Everything that we do, I say, and I stamp this as everything we do, there are white paper and clinic and research and studies behind every mode that we go through. There's no like, well, I heard somebody talked about this the other day. This is really cool.
Yeah.
This is where like my mind works, is like, because there is that, and then there's data that comes out on top of that where you have to really research what comes out. Because some things, to be quite frank, are bullshit.
Yeah.
I mean, truly. And or how they are marketed is also bullshit. I like, there will be things that like we put out as a society where it's like, oh, hey, like boost your vitamin D level. Well, boosting your vitamin D level takes some time. We're in, Northern America here. We're all chronically low. So how do you, like, it's not just, oh, I'm going to pop one vitamin D pill a day or something like that. You understand, like, that's a process. You need to take time.
Yeah. And it's an interesting thing because on one hand, in my lifetime, the conversation around wellness has really become way more prominent than it ever had. I mean, I can remember like maybe, I don't know, jazzercise or something, right? Like back in the 80s, there was certain trends, and even I'm just remembering like Bowflex or whatever it was, right? You get these like fitness trends, classes, things that would pop up, fad diets, right? But mostly, like what, your mom experienced, it was just sort of traditional medicine. And, you got sick, you went to the doctor, you got medicated, and that was kind of it. And or like, you had inflammation, you took Advil or something, that was sort of just how it was. Now, today, things have changed tremendously, I think. And you got, the Andrew Hubermans of the world and, all the gazillion-dollar industry of wellness. And, there's just so much more awareness. There is so much more out there. People are so much more interested in it. And that is going to inevitably lead to, some bad behavior, some bad marketing, or some things that people get excited about turn out not to be good for you or don't work or whatever. And so, I'm kind of curious just to hear a little bit more about, how do you navigate making sure that you're providing things that are, proven, or there's enough research on, because that's the other thing is like, some things don't get the, societal, FDA, whatever it is, approval. But that doesn't mean they're not good for you, right?
Absolutely.
That means maybe some drug company somewhere scared of them, or somebody hasn't, doesn't want to let go of whatever they're currently doing that they're making money on. So, kind of how do you sort through all of that?
You're hitting what I think is the real nail on the head, and what the real challenge is it's like, I'm going to go off this phrase. It's the age of false information, right? Mm-hmm. And the problem is like, yes, you have all of these resources that, like, no time, even since I've started, we have more and more people clamoring for health and wellness. Into that, how do you know? Well, my biggest thing that I want to do is educate people. It's the old proverb, give the man a fish, feed him for a day, teach the man a fish, feed him for a lifetime. Use the same principle. What we do as a program is, everybody in our program is medical. Everybody knows how to research and pull all these papers. It's keeping your fingers on the pulse with a lot of these institutions that put out good, like, data, good research articles. And it's being in tune with the experts in those fields. We know, like, I'm not the expert in every field. The other physicians we have on staff are not the experts in every field, but we work as a group. Everybody works as a group to bring in their levels of expertise and knowledge. Again, wellness is a community. There is no person on this planet, I don't care who they are, that is going to be your end-all, be-all wellness person. There's no one person. It's way too much. There are so many experts in so many different fields that you need to be able to collaborate with people. You need to have a community around you. And when it comes to the average person trying to understand that, this is where it becomes very dizzying. Because even at, my level, or the level of, like, where you're at, where you're a lot more learned with it, it's tough. Like, how do you know?
Sure.
And, like, you have to rely on what's clinically data driven. You have to be able to read data. That's where I see, and you brought it up, where people can cite articles. They can miscite articles. We can look at an article. I remember I was looking at something the other day where they were claiming something was like anti-cancerous or whatever. And you look at, like, their patient volume, you're like, well, there's like 5 people. Mm-hmm. And it's like, you don't account for a lot of variables, which basically makes this article bullshit.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, but somebody's going to take that headline and be like, we'll just make up something funny, like, rubbing this clover on my hand is going to have, like, anti-cancerous properties because, look, they did it over there.
Right.
Well, that doesn't make any sense. So the idea, I think, that is incumbent upon us who are at the antithesis of this new age of wellness is to start creating those libraries of Alexandria. Mm-hmm. Like, let's start compiling what real data is. I don't ever want to see this old, like, let's look at the old food pyramid, breads and everything like that at the bottom and how that goes up. We all know at this point that that's garbage.
Yeah.
that should not happen. That cannot happen. We can't allow that to happen anymore. Look at look how big that issue has become. It's a systemic issue in our society now. We grew up like that. My parents were, as we said, we were a little bit more health conscious, but we didn't specifically know that there's different grains that can cause inflammations that our bodies don't process well. Mm-hmm. I can't say the people who made that or didn't make that did either, but they did it with the intention for business and not for the intention of, hey, this is what's better for people.
Yeah, I have this curiosity and sort of maybe fantasy, although it might be true, that and a lot of people just really argue against this because it certainly has negative effects too. But I kind of believe technology really comes in and provides a giant assist here if it doesn't get kind of too far off track. In that, you have this issue where you go to medical school, or whatever your formal education is, and you learn, and then you go to work, and then you don't have time to learn, right? Especially doctors in the medical system currently, historically, I mean, they don't not only have time to learn, they don't even have time to take care of their own health, and so. And because health isn't something that is what we were told it was initially, or at least, for most doctors today, although, things have changed quite a bit in the last, I don't know, maybe decade, health was about your physical health, and the connection to your mental health wasn't there, right? So you would have doctors who were burning at both ends, working really hard, not able to have good nutrition, exercise, mentally burning themselves out. That impacts, relationships, et cetera. And so there certainly isn't room to get up to speed on the latest and greatest, right? And so I kind of feel like, well, shit, maybe tech helps here. I mean, I think tech probably helps in a lot of ways. We're seeing, with the wearables and all the other ways to measure your health, hold accountability. There's a lot of potential here. But from a research standpoint, I mean, if you're able to have these AIs that are going to go in and scrub all the research. Now, I mean, I know we're not quite there yet because sure seems like it could get there fast, where a doc who doesn't have the time to go comb through all the research might get that assist from tech.
Your ears must have been burning with this one. The other day, I was literally having a conversation with a colleague of mine where I was talking all this shit in the world about AI, and I was like, yeah, look, there are some jobs where AI is going to take over because it's just faster and better. But I was like, look, us in the medical field and science field, we're fine because it requires this, that, and the other day. And then all of a sudden, I think it was some university hospital in New York comes out with, AI is diagnosing cancer at a rate that's way faster. And I was like,
yeah.
Oh, I just get just kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, I think you're totally right. In the age of AI and all of this stuff and how it's able to scrub that data so fast, I can't tell you how many people come in now that are like, well, I use ChatGPT to look up my symptoms. They're, people don't even WebMD anymore.
Yeah, right.
They're just like, what does AI say about it?
Right.
And it's not quite there because then when they read it to me, it's like, well,
you're right.
Yes, some of the symptoms are right, but your causes and your mechanisms of action are not quite there because that would require such a level of detail to be able to describe to it.
Yeah.
Your wearables, I normally have my Whoop on, and that just broke, but I love my wearables. Mm-hmm. I love being able to monitor everything because when you look at data sets, and you have this long histogram of data, you can really look at hey, I know, if you're journaling with it, if you're working out with it, hey, this time period, for me, I was working late every night. I'm trying to build my business. I'm so focused on work, and you can just tell, you have a Whoop, you look at your HRV and stuff like that. It's just starts going down, plummeting. I can't tell you, I guarantee you've experienced this. If anybody has ever had a Whoop or an Aura ring or like a Polar chest strap or anything like that, if you're wearing that regularly, you will be amazed. And I know you can speak to this, is one glass of alcohol and how it affects your sleep.
Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah. I don't drink alcohol, but I do really know, like for me, what I really notice is when I don't sleep. So if I'm traveling, I'm jet lagged or something like that, or whatever happens is something with the dog or whatever, and I don't get my sleep. I see it and I feel it. My wife is always like, you got to look at the phone to determine how much energy you have. And I'm like, no, but it does give you I think another level of data. Like there's a lot of things that I love about the Whoop and and what it does for me. I know if I don't sleep well, how I feel. But seeing like just how far in the red I am, sort of reaffirms like, man, like you do need to take a day off. Right. Or when I feel pretty good, but I see it's at like 92% recovered, I'm like, I'm definitely going to go even harder. Right. Because I see that number. I see just all that green. I'm like, I'm pushing it today. And so it gives you a level of information that I think is helpful. I also just like the accountability of it. And you talked a little bit about, what we're doing at Greenhouse and the communal aspect. And, that for those people that don't know, this is a series. We're doing a podcast series as an extension of the regular podcast with all of our guests that are the experts that make up our Grow series, which you are one of, and we're thrilled to have you a part of that. And my belief in my work is just to take the things that I'm learning and that are helping me and others that I know, and then trying to bring them into our communities, because I do feel like, these are the communities that I want to live in. And not necessarily like physically, you don't have to live in them, but it's sort of the world you want to live in, right? You want to live in a world where people feel good, where they have energy, where they are healthy mentally and physically, where they are doing things together to support each other, right? And so that's what we're trying to really build Gravity and Greenhouse. And this Grow program is a dive. It's a deeper dive into health and wellness, right? Nature, well-being, transformation is what we say Greenhouse represents. And yet they're all very tiny, simple, accessible habits. Mm-hmm. And so I want you to kind of talk a little bit about, your role in that. And then also, what we're hoping happens is that by putting your toe in the water, by building these simple, basic habits, which collectively I do think have the ability to transform, that people then go, hey, Sean, what else is out there? Tell me more about what you're doing, because I'm into it now. Mm-hmm. I'm feeling good. I want to level up, which is then where, our experts are able to say, okay, good. I got a lot of other things I can share with you. So, maybe talk a little bit about, your role in all of that.
Well, I think first and foremost, I remember having the initial conversation with you about the Grow program and your communal aspect with it. And this is like unadulterated. We hadn't like met yet. And I can't tell you, like, I don't know if it was on my face or not. My eyes lit up because like you're the first person outside of like myself, but you're the first person who ever verbalized to me that I want to do community wellness. To me, that is true. That is like the spirit of wellness is community and being able to take care of your community. Like in this idea, and like I've already said it in a little bit, but like, this is your guys' program here of like, oh, we're going to bring in the experts. And it is in those small little habits, those little itty bitty things, universal change. ungodly changes for an individual. Hey, go to bed an hour early every night. Hey, maybe don't eat the fried food once a week. Well, that turns into twice a week and 3 times a week. And, the grains of sand add up, as they would say. For us is like where I really come into this for your guys' program is, we have a real focus on what I think is the core building block in life, which we all know we're all built up of water and we need water to survive. Absolutely. But the only thing that we know for a guaranteed fact that you have to, but it's so mysterious, is sleep.
Yeah.
Sleep is like one of these really kind of weird, we all know how important it is. And like you were saying, man, if you get kind of a crappy sleep, oh my God, your next day is just, and then you compound that, you do a couple days in a row, and it leads into this weird effect. As an athlete, when we're trying to optimize athletes, one of the very first conversations we have with all of our athletes, how are you sleeping? Mm-hmm. Any of the entertainers that we work with, hey, when you're on tour, what's your sleep schedule like? How are you sleeping?
Yeah.
Like, you can't function well at any degree. I don't care if we're hooking you up to all the most amazing things in the world. If you're not sleeping, if you don't sleep well, none of it will take effect.
Yeah.
We know people, like they've done study after study where, hey, we're going to take you out of sleep for 24 hours, 48 hours. Nobody's really made past 72. You start going into psychosis and like your body starts shutting down. It is such a weird thing where like water is an organic material. Okay, and we need that. We got it. But sleep is almost a weird conceptual thing. So part of like our expertise and level here is to try to impart that knowledge of, one, I don't think I haven't met a person yet who's ever told me my sleep is great all the time. I don't think I've met that person. Mm-hmm. We want to impart the importance of sleep and routine, the little factors. This is how we can get you to sleep better. And by sleeping better, it's that little pebble, it's that little breadcrumb. If just this little thing of, hey, I'm going to journal at night. Hey, I need some magnesium at night to help with my receptors, help me calm down. This routine, hey, I need to wash like my face or something like that. I need the temperature of the room a certain way. I need to do some meditation beforehand. I need to do a workout and a meditation. Like whatever my routine is, gets you in a cadence to get you into a better sleep latency pattern, which will then lead to a better like deep sleep, more REM, more theta, like brainwaves, like sleep levels. I start feeling better on a daily basis. Well, we know if you start sleeping better, weight loss is easier. Yeah. You lose way more weight when you're trying to weight loss. We know your brain works phenomenally better. We know your memory retention is so much higher. We know all of these things. And this isn't even like me exposing the secrets of the universe. I think anybody, when you talk to them, well, yeah, you want to lose more weight, you sleep.
Yeah. Let me ask you something. This is sort of just, I don't know. I'm just kind of curious about this. You mentioned like a magnesium. Other people take sleep medication. There's a lot of talk right now about like the Ozempics and, all the weight loss. And some people think it's like cheating. Others say, well, look, whatever gets you to lose the weight, because being overweight is way worse for you than whatever medication it's on. As far as sleep goes, there's certain medications that are maybe more natural and there's, a lot of things that you've mentioned that, don't require medication. Being able to journal or turn off your phone and, change the light or get tired exercising, or there's a lot of other ways to do this without medication. But do you feel like that there are ways to do it that you really should, or however you get there, including if it's medication, it doesn't matter as long as you get there, as long as you're getting the sleep. Is that all that matters, or are there certain ways that you really should be doing it?
The answer is the same thing with like the Ozempic debate is yes, there are people where it is far more important to lose the weight. Yeah, I mean, we have chronically obese patients or whatever. The diabetes and everything that they face are far more dangerous for them in reducing their weight. I mean, we're talking stresses on the heart, the whole 9 yards. When it comes to sleep, using that same analogy is, you know what, some people, like, for whatever reason, health, anxiety related PTSD, need medications. Our theory on this, my theory on this is the more organic when it comes to sleep, the better. For anybody who's ever taken like a medicated sleeping pill or something like that, or I'll even make it over the counter. You take like a NyQuil when you're sick, you sleep, and you wake up and you're just kind of in that, groggy.
Yeah.
You can tell, your body can tell right away. Well, this isn't natural. I don't like.
Or you don't feel rested.
Yeah, you might have slept, but like you didn't sleep.
You didn't get the energy you needed. Yeah.
Exactly. There wasn't that that actual reset. And we see this a lot when we take a look and when there's all these brainwave studies or REM studies when it comes to sleep, is in a very broad sense, the less organic it is, the less time you spend in like your beta wave sleep, your sleep latency gets harder.
Yeah.
And that's why like we look at our phones at night, like we found like the wavelengths, the blue wave, because that throws off these rhythms.
Yeah.
It's easier to read a book.
Yeah.
You know, it's easier if you get into the magnesiums or you get into like a self-soothing. These are organic things that like your body has control of. Now, there are natural things that cause imbalances, and this is where your supplementation, this is where like if you're taking melatonin, okay, you like you had a wild day, things like are stressful as hell. All right, let's take some melatonin because we know the increase in melatonin here is going to help with your sleep latency. Melatonin is, by the way, a naturally occurring substance in your body. So your body, even though recognizes that it's a synthetic thing that you're putting in there, it's still in that like pipeline of organic. Your body knows what it is. So you can still get that sleep. When we start getting into medications and all this other stuff, yes, you will sleep, but anybody who's been on these things, who's taken the Ambiens and stuff like that, what you find is it's a very slippery slope.
Yeah.
You start taking it here, okay, oh yeah, I got my sleep. Well, then all of a sudden, well, now I need to take more. Now I'm still feeling tired. Now I'm still feeling crummy, and like, you just keep sliding.
Yeah.
The biggest thing we can do to combat that is I'm a big believer in our routines, in our small little changes, like in understanding our own body chemistries as far as like what we can do to make it better. Be it, some people have like studies where like if they get really into like some breath work and meditation, it's almost more powerful than any sleep drug we know. Yeah,
that's again why I'm excited about the Grow program, because you know all of those things are included, and you know we use the word transformation, and yet you know we're also talking about you know tiny habits and simple, affordable, accessible things. But I do think you know collectively it's sort of you know slept on that that you know people have a tendency to go to the drugs, to the medicine, to the, you know, big swings. And really, you know, if you can learn to breathe and you can clear your mind with the practice of any kind, if you can make sure you get some good sleep, get your face in the sun, you know, learn to see gratitude and everything that you're doing. If you can start to focus on your nutrition and start to eat a little bit healthier, you know, and a few other things like, this is going to be transformative. It really, really does have the potential to change how you feel and how you then move through the world. Your being, shifts when you have these practices. And I've just seen it
and now there's just science behind it too. So anyway, we're thrilled to have you involved. Thank you for playing a role in this. It's important to us and I think to the people that are involved, and hopefully it's a part of something that continues to grow and expand. And I know there's a lot of synergy and potential for us to keep doing more and more together. And I'll kind of turn it over to you for some final thoughts.
My final thoughts on everything is, kind of what I said right here at the end was that this communal aspect and bringing in all these experts and having a community-focused basis in wellness is such a, I think, transcendent idea concept. Like, we are very, very excited to be a part of this. I believe in this to my core. And the effect that it can have on not just our local populace, and I'm getting grandiose, like the effect that I think it can have on like humankind is if we all understand that there's this community aspect and we all need to try to be healthier. Nobody wants to go through all these horrible diseases and illnesses and feel frail. You don't have to. You can like take charge of what you're doing and make small little habitual changes that are, butterfly effect on your life. And that's why something like this, I think, is so important. And I find truly amazing, that you guys have really kind of started this, type of thing, and that we're able to help out. I mean, we're able to provide a lot of expertise in it that, I think and really believe is going to help create a domino effect. And because people are going to see people who are in these communities are going to be healthier, than elsewise and around. This really kind of puts together that idea of, health is wealth in a spec. Health is your community. There's so many little facets to it. We could sit here for hours and hours and talk about it, but at the end of the day, I appreciate you guys having me on and being able to share a little bit of my journey with you guys. We're very, very excited to, get this going and be a part of this. This is really part of our goals to help change. So there's a lot of synergy there. The magic that can happen based off of just little changes and the domino effect will be huge.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Excited. All right. Thanks, Sean. That's a wrap. Appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the Gravity Podcast. Please subscribe to the show at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. To learn more about the entire Gravity Project, please go to gravityproject.com. Please check out the podcast on Instagram at The Gravity Podcast. Music heard of the show is provided courtesy of Kyle Lamoro and Oliver Oak.